Hey everybody, Ken here. This room has a lot of echo in it. You can probably hear it. It sounds really bad. I'm gonna put some sound absorbing panels in the ceiling. Now the only thing left to do is build the panels, so let's go ahead and do it. To make a sound panel, you need three main components: the frame, the sound absorbing material, and the fabric. The frame can be made of any type of wood. I chose plywood because it's easy to cut and to make repetitive cuts with. The thickness of the frame doesn't need to be that thick, it's only there to keep the shape of the sound panel. I used the plywood with a thickness of 12 millimeters. When putting the frame together, you don't need to add any glue in the joints. Nails themselves are strong enough. The only place where I added glue was at the cleats. That's the only place any force is applied at all. So here you can see me installing a support bracket. This is to ensure that the frame will not get an hourglass shape when I tighten the fabric around it. It also helps to keep the frame square. When installing the panels under the ceiling, two cleats will slide into each other. To ensure that process goes as smooth as possible, I remove some of the corners of the cleats. When you build the same thing over and over again, you should try to not use any ruler. Here you can see me using a wooden block instead of a ruler. That way I always get the same measurement every single time. So now when the first frame is done, I will use that frame to make a template. That way all the remaining frames will be a lot faster to build. Now let's talk about the sound absorbing material we're gonna use. I highly recommend the rock wool. Rock wool is used by many professionals in their own sound absorbing panels. You can find it at your local hardware store. It's really cheap and it comes in big packages. I do not recommend that you try to fill your panels with towels or pillows or anything like that you can find in your home. The material needs to be sound absorbing. That means that the sound should not pass through or get reflected back. Towels, for example, reflect the sound back and absorb very little of the sound. And last of all, we need an acoustically transparent fabric. You cannot use any type of fabric you find to cover your panels with. This is actually quite important. An acoustically transparent fabric allows sound to pass through it. Now sound is a lot like light. It can either pass through it, it can get absorbed into it, or it can get reflected back. To measure acoustic transparency, you need special tools for it, or at least a special setup. But there is an easy way to do it, a kinda DIY way. What you do is that you take the fabric and cover your mouth with it, and then try to breathe through it. If you can breathe easily through the fabric, that means air passes through it. And if that goes well, that means sound also travels through it. When you do this, also try to say something. If your voice sounds a little bit distorted, then it's not a good fabric. The less distortion your voice have, the more acoustically transparent the fabric is. I did test a lot of fabrics before I found something I was pleased with. And here's a test of a few fabrics I currently have at hand, including the fabric I chose to use. Now this is from an old bedsheet. I believe it's a 100% cotton. This is how my voice sounds like when I speak through it. It's very hard to say something. So this wasn't the best. Next up we have a small hand towel. So this is how my voice sounds like when I try to speak through it. Yeah, it's not the best one either. Now this is real speaker fabric. It's the same type of fabric they use to cover speakers. Now this is how my voice sounds like when I speak through it. It's very easy to talk and I can breathe easily. Speaker fabric, really good fabric. Now this is the fabric I came across, and from all my testing I did, this was the best one. It's not as good as the speaker fabric, but I believe it's quite good. So this is how my voice sounds like when I speak through it. I can breathe fairly easy and I believe it's quite good. Yeah, so that's the fabric I'm using. So if I'm gonna rank all these fabrics, I would say the towel is by far the worst. Then we have the used bed sheets, and second best was the fabric I chose, and by far the best one is the speaker fabric. There is however one more fabric I can test that is actually quite good, and that's the t-shirt I'm wearing. So as you can hear, my voice sounds quite good in this, and it's fairly easy to read through. So if you can get a hold of this fabric, it's quite good. Assembling the panels are actually quite easy. All you do is you roll out the fabric, you put the insulation material on the fabric and then the frame on the insulation material. From there you simply just fold up the fabric around the frame and take it into place. The Rockwool sheets I used had a flat side and an uneven side. The uneven side I put against the ceiling and the flat side I put against the fabric. Now if these panels wasn't directly mounted to the ceiling, I would use some kind of back fabric to seal in all the Rockwool particles from the back of the panel. And if you're worried that some particles will leak through the fabric anyway, you can also use some kind of spray glue to seal the Rockwool before putting it in the frame. gonna mount this in the ceiling is that we take these cleats that we have over here and take the corresponding cleats in the ceiling and mount it like that in the ceiling. When these are in the ceiling, we can then just slide in the panel and that will hold it in place. You can put these on the wall and you can put them on the ceiling using the same system. Before we can actually put this in the ceiling, we need to measure out the distance between these two. If they are too close, as you can see, the panel will hang very loosely to the ceiling, and then if they are too far apart, they won't fit. So what I will do is I will take a piece of plywood like this and simply just try to make it work. And once it works, I know the distance and then I can just put them up in the ceiling. First try, not bad. Now what I end up doing here is using this plywood as a template to where to fasten my cleats in the ceiling. The project is finally done and I'm so pleased with the results. The panels are up under the ceiling and they are working great. The echo sound is almost gone. It's a little bit naturally because I have a blank wall over there and a blank wall over there, so the sound kind of bounces between those walls. This was made very clear to me when I had the panels leaning against that wall over there. The sound quality in this room was actually better than right now. Before I made this project, I made a clap test and this is how it sounded. And this is how it sounds right now. Yeah, it sounds so much better. If you like this project just as much as I did, hit that like button, it would mean a lot to me. If you like the panels I just made, you should subscribe to my channel. In an upcoming video, I'll make the same panels, but for an office. They're gonna have some extra features built into them that these doesn't have. They will be more dust proof and way better looking, so stay tuned for that.